Hey, what's up? Well, I'm making another video while I can. You know, make them while I can, post them when I can't, is my motto. And what I like to talk about in this video, I want to title it No Hope for Normal. I really, I kind of, when I fantasized about getting that kin with the prosthetic leg, I was going to make a video about how I just have no hope of being normal. And, I was going to relate him to me, but then I thought perhaps, that would be in poor taste and it'd be, buying something I'm not really pleased with, just to make a video, and that's not what I want to do. I don't want to be stuck with an $8 purchase instead of a meal at a restaurant, just to make a video about how I'm not normal and have no hope of ever being normal, thanks largely to my name. My first name kind of precluded any normal life I could have ever had. I was never, it's like at a subconscious level, I always felt that because of what my name is, I have no hope of ever being a normal person. Therefore, I didn't even bother to try. So, without further ado, I'd like to talk for a moment about this. I'm illuminating my face with this solar light, and it's a shame that it cannot be doing its job and shining outside. And I'm using a sock to trick it into thinking it's dark so that that light will shine. But placing it is easier said than done. So it's just getting to the point where, every day it rains, and that's very annoying. I do not like the weather around here. I cannot stand the weather. And how every day we have some chance of rain, so as much as I would like for that little light to be shining outside, instead it can shine in here and illuminate my beautiful face so that I look as white as humanly possible. And you can tell that my hair isn't black. And, so what I want to talk about is how, I just have no hope of being normal. I mean, yes, I could do things that are more normal. I could stop collecting these dolls. And that's another thing I want to talk about is how, the reason why I couldn't care less about making this, well, I'm glad to have yet another blonde kid called Jody. There was a time, believe it or not, when I didn't have any Jody dolls, just Katie, because I already had Kelly dolls, but I did not know what I was missing all those years when I should have bought one at the store. And, it's just very frustrating. Well, the reason I'm not even tempted to make her into a boy is because I've already have several dolls like that I made into boys. And that's just an example of what a Jody doll looks like with flocked hair. And of course, there were actual boys named Timmy. But as you can imagine, they were pretty rare. That's the actual boy. And I'm not going to bother getting him out the bag. So, I have basically, the thing about Timmy is, like all male dolls, he was pretty generic and only came in a dark blonde with blue eyes. They just like to make one average boy, kind of the average between all hair colors, which ends up being a sandy blonde. But I decided to make my own version with flocked hair, a blonde with flocked hair, a brunette with flocked hair, and kind of a redhead or auburn head with flocked hair and pretty blue eyes, kind of a light brownette, and then I have more of an orange redhead. And then, of course, I had the black-haired boy that you probably saw. And then there's brunette girls. See, there is, of course, there's going to be a redhead girl of sorts with purplish eyes. Beautiful. And so, if this is yet another blonde girl, although I wish I didn't have quite so many blonde girls, I'm just okay with, you know, a doll in ladybug colors being a lady, if you will. So that's, you know, my dolls, and it's just getting very frustrating, you know. I mean, it's sad because, I mean, I have so many of them. It's like I have more dolls than I can remember where I've put them. I mean, yes, I love every single one of them, but it's getting frustrated because it's like I can't even find them. It's like I know I have them, I can see them in my mind, but which white plastic container has them is getting to be a challenge to remember. And, you know, I wish I could sell, you know, the redundant ones, you know, like a lot of the blonde girls. I wish I could, but I just happen to know that the monetary value that I will get from doing that will not be what I want. It will not be worth the postage, and it will not erase the memory of me remembering the fact that I had them at some point. You know, even to this day, I am haunted by the images of things that I've sold. You know, it's just never enough. Okay, so I don't know. I guess maybe one day we'll have a garage sale, but I really don't know what's going to become of all these dolls. And you see how I said I don't even, with the little boys, I don't even bother to change their eyebrows a lot of the time, or even erase their eyelashes, because, I mean, really, I mean, who says, you know, who decided that a male cannot have thinner eyebrows and longer eyelashes than average? You know, I mean, if women make themselves look that way to look more infantilized, so to speak, then why shouldn't a little bitty boy just look naturally infantilized? You know what I'm saying? If he's a little bitty boy, you know, a little toddler of a boy, why shouldn't he have the features that women give themselves to look younger? You know what I'm saying? Why does he have to have big, thick, scary eyebrows and no eyelashes that you can see? Invisible eyelashes. So anyway, enough about the dolls, but I want to title this video No Hope of Being Normal, and just say that, you know, part of why my life is so messed up is because I know that I don't have any hope of being a normal person. And it's largely because of my name. You know, I honestly think, and I know my parents, neither one of my parents want to hear of this, but I honestly think that a name change, even if it's not a male name, you know, I've always, you know, thought about all the things that my name could be. And, you know, Veronica feels very comfortable and nice online. But, you know, just any other name but the one that I have. I've often even thought about trading my middle name and first name. You know what I'm saying? Like middle, first, last instead of first, middle, last. A lot of people do that. You know, they use their middle name. And I mean, there's a lot of famous people that were not born the name that they're known by. You know, Garth Brooks was not born Garth. And, you know, Keith Whitley was Jackie Keith. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that use their middle name instead of their first. And I really do think that my middle name, although equally feminine as my first name, I think that if I could have been allowed to sign that name and my last name and sort of omit my first name, just tell every teacher at roll call to call me by my middle name instead, I think I could have had a much more normal and productive and happy life. I really do. And if those two things would have been different, if I'd have used my middle name, and if I would have not had that obsession with the common cold, you know, that has those two things, and they go hand in hand. They've really just destroyed my life. You know, I mean, it's like I can't ever be normal, and it made me mad. You know, the way my sister just wanted to blend in, you know, she would, oh, I hear the train. She would, you see, and that's another thing that makes me abnormal. My obsession with that train. Every time it blows, I have to acknowledge it. You know, I can't just talk over the train like it's nothing, like most people. And so, you probably can't even hear it, but I hated the way my sister would try to fit in. She would try to conform to what other kids were doing, because she wanted to be like everybody else. Well, with me, there was no hope of that. Between my name, my mental problems, and all the quirks that I have, like that train. Like every time we'd have a fire drill at school, I would go off about the train, and sometimes I'd get called down for it. And, that's just one of the many things about me that just set me apart. And the only way I guess it could have been worse, if more of my schools would have been near the railroad track. I've often thought I was deprived of a better life I could have had living in this town, because the high school, is like on the way to the railroad track from here. And I often think that my life would have been much better had I grown up in this town and gone to these schools, or even, lived in another town with more stuff along the track, and if I could have had a job, working somewhere that's practically on the track. So, that's just one of the quirks that just sets me apart, to where I'm not like anybody else. And, I just had no hope of being normal ever. I never, you see, my sister wanted to fit in. She always says, like, she did everything she could to be like the other girls, and she did. She always made me so mad, because I would catch her. She would just do the stupidest things to try to be like everybody else. And it was like, she has also an uncommon name, but it doesn't have that connection with the common cold that mine has. I guess I'm giving away too much. It's still uncommon, like both of our names. My mom had this thing about not wanting us to have common names, like not wanting us to have names that a lot of other people would also have. And that's a lot, but it's very easy to give, like with girls, names are so trendy. You see, with boys, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, boy moms and boys' parents are more likely to give them common names on purpose. Like, just like with dolls, there's less variety that people choose from with boys' names. They're more likely to just open the Bible and, name their son after the most famous people in it, if not the word Christian, of all things, or Chris. For some reason, people just want boys to have, just commonplace everyday names, and as a result, there was always certain names, like Matthew and Michael, wherein, every year we would have multiple boys, with those kind of names, certain types of names. We'd always have at least one boy with a name similar to that in our class every year. Jonathan, John, Johnny, they're just common names. Whereas with girls, you pretty much, all you have to do to give a girl a less common name is just name her something outdated. You know what I'm saying? And my name is one of those somewhat outdated names. It would have been very normal, say, 100 years ago, but it just kind of went out of style, I guess, in the 50s or 60s, or I'm not sure when, but it just wasn't very common by 83. My sister's name never really was all that common, but, in my case, there's this connection to cults, that my name has that just always set me apart and simultaneously made it unforgettable when I had one. You know, that's why it's such an insult to my intelligence. When my parents would well, my mom, I mean, my dad, he wasn't tracking that. I mean, he barely even knew our birthdays, let alone if we had a cold. Um, but, you know, people would try to blur the distinction between colds and allergies because my mom, you know, she couldn't stand the fact that her kids, you know, got so many of them for that age group. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like I was behind. We were both, but especially me. We were behind in, you know, like, I don't know, I guess most kids stop catching a lot of them by the time they're a teenager. They're to the adult level. And then adults with small children actually see an increase, you know. And so, you know, like a 20 something mom with kids actually has more colds than the average teenage girl. But in my case, it was kind of the other way, or well, my life has been the other way around because it's different. You know, I had a younger sister who kind of kept our family a family with a young child. And, you know, just a combination of me being redshirted, me having a younger sister, and most of my cousins being younger than me. Those three things, it was like life always put me, why, I don't know. But life always put me in situations where I was the oldest child or one of the oldest. You know what I'm saying? I was never, for some reason, I was just never, hardly ever the baby of a group. You know, and part of that could be my immaturity. You know, the fact that I didn't relate to older kids because I was maybe emotionally immature. And so if kids were older than me, then there was no way they were going to freely associate with me. And the fact that I didn't happen to have a lot of such kids in my life meant that I hardly ever interacted with them. You know, like if my mom was friends with, one time my mom was friends with a woman who had two daughters, one of them slightly older than me, one of them slightly younger than me. Well, guess which one I played with? And for obvious reasons, guess which one had more in common with me, you know, and more similar interests? The younger one. The older one, you know, had her own friends. And so I was like behind, so to speak, mentally. So, yeah, just always, you know, had mental issues that set me behind, that set me back. And so, yeah, my mom was in denial of the number of colds that I had, being, well, until a certain age it was above average. You know, I was doing the math, and I'm pretty sure I had exactly 35 colds in my teens. When my age ended in when it ended in the word teen, 13 through 19, I had 35 colds that I remember, which makes the math really easy. That's an average of 5 per year when I was 13 through 19. 4 plus 9 plus 5 plus 4 plus 6 plus 3 plus 4. I'm pretty sure that's 35. So divided by 7, that 7-year period, I had a mean average of 5 colds a year. And supposedly the average teenager is more like 2 to 3 colds like an adult. You know, the boys are averaging about 2, the girls are averaging about 3. Because the boys had more when they were younger. And so they've built more immunity. But in my case, I was averaging 5 during my teen years. Wouldn't know it, of course, until later. But that had everything to do with me having a younger sister. And, you know, and probably, well, in my first decade of life, I know that the average between age 11 and 12 was 6. You know, if I had 5 at 11, 7 at 12, then that's an average of 6 a year. So that's probably what I was averaging when I would say 12 and under, or 6 through 12, probably 6 a year. Probably when I was under 6, I was more like an adult, 2 to 3 per year, which was unnatural, and she didn't understand that. You know, keeping both of us isolated from other kids. You know, my sister, I vividly remember she went from having 2 of my 4 colds the year I was in 7th grade, which was one of my best years, to having more than the 9 that I had the following year, because she went to kindergarten. And so, yeah, she definitely more than made up for it. So the average, let's say she had about a dozen or so, so the average was 7, but it was 2 drastically different years because of kindergarten. So yeah, there's no hope of me being normal, and no hope of me forgetting all these colds that I had. And like in my 20s, as I've stated before, I had 15 colds, 11 in my early 20s, 4 in my late 20s. So it went from, it's an overall average of 1.5 even, but it started off 2, ended up less than 1 as time went on. And so, so that right there, 35 plus 15, that's what, 50 cold, or no, 35 plus 15, yeah, I think that's 50. Why do I second guess myself so much? 50 colds right there. So in that, what, 17-year period, that's an average of at least 3 per year. Yeah, 3 per year, roughly, when I was 13 through 29. And before that it had been higher. And so, like, you know, the reason, and she's also in denial of this, the reason why my new average, like in my 30s, I may have had 8 or 9 of them or something. You know, a few of them were subclinical, but so less than 1 per year in my 30s, exactly 1 at age 40. So, you know, the reason why I'm averaging less than 1 per year, or more than a year between them, is because it's directly because of the fact that I had so many when I was younger. You know, because I was averaging 5 colds a year in my teens, that is what strengthened my immune system so that I would catch less than half as many as an adult as average. And, like, you know, she'll never, like, erase, no one can ever erase from my memory, you know, of course, that one the first week of May in 97, and then, you know, Wednesday Addams, October 13th, 2004. That was very memorable because my sister was a 7th grader. So yeah, this connection between 7th grade and colds, and, you know, my name and all that, it just means that I'll never be normal. And I just have to be okay with that and post this video.